most cases of gang stalking involve vehicle intimidation, and this was also true in my case. One of the repeated things and occurrences that I had happen regularly, in fact, I would say it happened at least once a day, and still happens several times a week, multiple times in a week. And at one point, it was basically every single day. There was it wasn't just one kind of vehicle. The type of truck or car was different from day to day. And I think even one day it was a patrol vehicle. Uh, Interestingly enough, but I had vehicles that would pass in front of my residence, and at least once per day there would be I would hear a horn honk in the tune of the haircut and the shave uh, melody. And if you if you hear this if you hear this melody, you'll recognize what I'm referring to. But it's the old melody of bump 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 bump, and you hear it in cartoons a lot. But this was done on a car horn, so it would have been honk, in this pattern, as though it was the haircut and the shave tune. And this was done in front of my residence multiple times. At one point, I think it was being done 2 or 3 times a day. And since the highway is fairly close to to where I live, it was very audible. Even when I was in the house, I could clearly hear this horn as it passed by honking in this way. And this is done exactly the same way as a lot of these other things are done. It's something that's somewhat repetitive. It There was a time where it was usually in the morning, and then it switched to different times a day, and even now, once or twice a day, several times a week. Depending on the week, I'll hear somebody pass in front of my house and honk, 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 dun, dun, and I'll think, oh well, you know, uh, there they are. And so this is typical. This is another thing that happens quite frequently, and it's another thing that's hard to convey to somebody else, and it's personalized. Not uh, everyone who is going through this situation and having these occurrences has their own thing that happens to them, and so to try to describe it to someone else is difficult to relate. But for me, I can share that personal specific thing that's done to me, and everybody has different things that are perpetrated on them, but that's one thing that's fairly constantly done in front of my residents. And sometimes some people have regular horn honks, but excessively and just aggressive honking and loud, obnoxious honking. With me, it's done in this somewhat almost like a humorous melody. It's almost done tongue in cheek, sort of mockingly, like ha, listen to this, and then they, drive off. And the other thing that I have also personally experienced in my case is that I'll have vehicles that will circle around the block, and they will circle around my residence several times. Sometimes it could be 100 times a day, and it's the same vehicle. And this also goes back to sensitization. there was a time period where the vehicle side of things was a lot more heavy, where there was a period of probably at least a month or two where I would have on a daily basis 3 or 4 cars or trucks. It was usually a mix of cars and trucks that would, in a certain make and model of car and truck, it was the same vehicles, would circle around my residence on the street and then turn and then circle back around, and it would take them maybe a few minutes to make a full circle. So every few minutes I would be hearing these same car engines going around, and I would look and I could see it was the same vehicles going around my residence probably 300 times, however many times they could go around it in that day. They just did nothing but drive around the block and drive around my residence. And that ties back also into sensitization, because these particular vehicles have a certain sound. Engines have different sounds. So these vehicles had a distinct engine noise. And so I got sensitized. In my case, I got sensitized to certain engine sounds of different vehicles, because these certain vehicles, makes and models, would circle around my house hundreds of times a day, non-stop. And so now, even though that part of my experience is, things are, even though that part of the occurrence has changed to other things, whenever I hear these particular types of engines pass by my house, the thought crosses my mind, oh, are they back? Are they going to circle around me, 100 times a day? So that's one personal example I can give of sensitization and a highly personalized set of sounds and use of synchronicity that is used as a psychological weapon. And in the case of the horn honker, it's almost done with a sort of a tongue-in-cheekness, a sort of a humorous mocking, in a mocking way, because it's comical the way that it's done, but the fact that it's being done is very ominous. So a lot of these things will happen in if you are experiencing a case of gang stalking, and if you're a targeted person, this type of thing will happen quite a bit, and it may happen very heavily for a certain time span, and then things will switch to another set of things that equally synchronized. But so I wanted to share that personal experience that I had, and that was part of my own personal experience with sensitization to certain stimuli. And it, like many other things, it's still it's noticeable, but you see it for the actual the actuality of what it is, and you're able to sort of compartmentalize it and recognize that, yes, okay, this is part of what I'm experiencing. So I wanted to make a video about that, just to share a personal account of mine.